Today we will be discussing the concept of interest. Okay, so interest is the price that you pay to borrow money, is the price that you pay to borrow money. Whether it be it a bank or a private lender or somebody else. Okay, it is a sort of compensation for borrow. Say, suppose if I give you $5,000 and if you give me $5,100, the extra $100 is considered as interest and is sort of a compensation for borrowing the $5,000 from me. Okay, so it's kind of the extra money that you have to pay to somebody to in order to borrow the money from them. Okay, so there are two different types of interest. One is the simple interest, and the other one is the compound interest. Okay, and today we'll be just discussing the simple interest. Okay, so simple interest is the interest that is calculated just on the amount of money that is borrowed. So it's the interest that is calculated, simple interest that is calculated only on amount of money that is borrowed. Okay, so there are two different types of interest, simple interest and compound interest, and today we will be just discussing the simple interest. And simple interest is the interest that is calculated only on the amount of money that is borrowed, okay, or the principal amount as we call it. Okay, let's take a few examples in order to make the concept a little bit more clear on simple interest. Suppose you borrow $5,000 from a bank for 3 years at the rate of 10% per year. How much simple interest will you have to pay for the $5,000 that you borrowed at the end of 3 years? So you borrow $5,000. Let's call this the principal amount. Or the amount that you borrowed. Now, bank is charging 10% interest per year. That means that this is the extra amount that you have to pay to borrow from the bank. So 10% of borrowed amount is equal to interest rate. Okay, so the bank is charging 10% of the $5,000 every year for you to allow you to borrow that $5,000. So in order to calculate how much extra money you need to pay, let's say you want to calculate how much extra money you paid at the end of the first year. So first year is equal to $5,000 into the 10% interest. So the bank is charging 10% extra money to for you to borrow it for 1 year. So you can say 5,000 into 10 by 100. Percentage can be written as 10 by 100. So these two cancel out, which is $500. So at the end of the first year, you're paying $500 extra. So let's say at the end of second year, how much it is? Second year, again, $5,000. And since this is simple interest, you are only calculating the interest on the borrowed amount, as we explained in before. So again, 10%, which is $5,000 into 10 by 100, which is $500 again. Similarly, at the end of third year is the same. So $500, it will be $500. So you see, like at the end of the first year, you're paying 500, you're paying second year 500 more, and at the end of the third year, you're paying 500. So total interest is equal to 500 plus 500 plus 500. So for at the end of 3 years, you'll be paying $1,500 extra to borrow those $5,000. So you'll be paying $1,500 extra to borrow the $5,000 for 3 years. Now, if you want to write this as a general formula for simple interest, we know that if $5,000 is the principal amount, and let's write it as P, and the rate of interest 10%, let's write it as R. So at the end of the first year, the interest will be P into R. So first year, the interest will be P multiplied by R. Similarly, at the end of second year is P multiplied by R, and third year is P into R. So interest is equal to P into R plus P into R plus P into R. If I is the interest, so first year you have paying P into R as the interest. Similarly, second year you are paying P into R, and the third year you are paying P into R, which is 3PR. Now 3 is the time frame that you are borrowing the money for. So if you represent 3 as a time T, which is a general time, so if instead of 3 it is 5 years or 7 years or whatever that is, so if you represent 3 as T, so interest will be TPR or PRT. Okay, so interest will be principal into the rate of interest into the time frame that you borrow the amount. So interest, simple interest, is calculated as principal amount that you borrowed, which in this case is $5,000, multiplied by the rate of interest, which is 10%, and the time frame that you borrow the money for, which is 3 years. So the total interest that you pay at the end of 3 years in this case is $1,500, and it can be calculated using interest is equal to PRT. Okay, let's take a couple of more examples to make this concept clear. Okay, you're given that you borrow $8,000 from the bank for 5 years at the rate of 7% per year. So how much interest will you have to pay on the $8,000 at the end of 5 years? So we know that principal is $8,000, and rate of interest R is equal to 7%, and the time frame is 5 years. Now from the previous example, we know that interest is equal to PRT. So principal is 8,000 into rate 7% into years, time is 5 years. So we can write $8,000 into 7 by 100 into 5. So which is 80 into 7 into 5. 80 into 7, 56. 560 into 5, which is 2,800. Okay, so the interest that you pay on the $8,000 loan is 2,800. So at the end of 5 years, you will pay $2,800 extra, $2,800 extra for the $8,000 that you borrowed. Okay, and that's how you solve this problem. Let's take one more example. Suppose you borrow $10,000 from a bank at 10% per year, and at the end of the time frame, you paid $2,000 in interest. When you return the money, you paid $2,000 extra, and so you're asked to find out how many years did you borrow the money. So we know that interest is equal to PRT, and we're given I is equal to $2,000. That's the interest that you paid. That's the interest that you paid. The principal amount P is equal to $10,000. That's the amount of money that you borrowed here. And then rate of interest is given as 10%. And you are supposed to find out T. T is how much? So we know that I is 2,000. 2,000 is equal to 10,000 principal into 10 by 100. That's the rate of interest into time T. Okay. So these two cancel out. So 2000 is equal to 100 into 10 into T. So 2000 is equal to 1000 T, or T is equal to 2000 divided by 1000, which is 2 years. So basically it took 2 years for you to pay the $2,000 in interest on the $10,000. So you took 2 years to pay the amount back. Okay, let's solve one more problem. Suppose you borrow $10,000 from a bank and paid $2,000 in interest at the end of 4 years. What is the rate of interest? So we know the principal amount is $10,000. The interest I is equal to $2,000. That's the extra amount that you paid. And we have a time frame of 4 years. So you took 4 years to pay the $10,000 back with $2,000 extra. And we are supposed to find out the rate of interest. Rate of interest is equal to how much? So we know that I is equal to P or T. So I is 2,000. Principal is 10,000. We don't know the rate, and time frame is 4 years. So we can write R is equal to 2,000 divided by 10,000 into 4. Now these cancel out. 3. Now 2 goes into 4 2 times. So R is equal to 1 by 10 into 2, which is 1 by 20. Now, whenever we express interest rates, we express it as a percentage. So percentage is usually by 100. So in order to make this by 100, we multiply numerator and denominator by 5. So 1 into 5 divided by 20 into 5. So R is equal to 5 by 100. So which is 5%. Okay. So the interest rate to borrow the money was 5%. And that's how we solve some of these problems. Thank you.